Hi everyone, welcome to Eve Math Tutoring. Today's lesson is on like terms. So in algebra, when you're adding and subtracting algebraic expressions, you're only allowed to add and subtract like terms. So the question is, what are like terms? So if we have x and y, those are not considered like terms because they're different variables. However, if we have x and 2x, those are considered like terms because the coefficients in front are different. However, the variables are raised to the same power. If I had x and 2x squared, those would not be considered like terms because this x is raised to the power of 1 and this one is raised to the power of 2. X cubed and x squared are not like terms. However, if I had 2x squared and 5x squared, those are like terms because they both have the same power attached to the variable. Okay? Now if we had just numbers, say we had the numbers 2 and 6, those are like terms because they're both numbers. If we had the number 2 and a variable x, these are not considered like terms because this is a number and this is a variable. If we had something like xw and xy, those are not considered like terms because they have, this one has x and y and this has x and w and this one has x and y. Now if we had x, w, and wx, those are considered like terms. Even though they're written in a different order, it's still considered like terms to one another. So the order of the multiplication doesn't actually matter. Okay, so these are like terms. So if we had xw squared and w squared x, again, like terms. If we had xw squared and 5xw squared, those are like terms again. So you're always looking at the variable and the powers of the variable. If I had x squared w squared and xw squared, those would not be considered like terms. And the reason for that is because this x is raised to the power of 1 and this x is raised to the power of 2. Okay. So let's see a few more examples here. A and b are not like terms because they're different variables. If I had 7x to the 7 and I had 5x to the 5, I would not be able to add them because they are also not considered like terms. Okay, so that's a quick lesson on like terms. So what you're really looking for is if you have the same variable, and if you do, the coefficients never matter. The number in front doesn't matter. However, when you look at the variable, you have to check the power of the variable. So in this case, you've got the same power in the same variable. And if you have more than one variable, then if you have, say, 2 variables in this case, the order doesn't actually matter. So if they're raised to, sorry, not in this case here. So if you have 2 variables, now in this case these are different, so these ones are not like terms. However, here we have x, w, and wx, so these two would be considered like terms even though they're written in a different order. Okay, so if I had x, y, z and 6yxz, these actually would be like terms. Even though they're written in a different order, it still consists of the same 3 variables being multiplied by one another, and they all have the same power. And then this one has a coefficient of 1 and this has a coefficient of 6. So therefore these are considered like terms. Okay? If I had a situation where I had xy squared z and I had 6yxz, now in this case, because the y has a power of 2, these two are not like terms. Okay, so you're always looking at the powers of the variables, and when you do that, you can actually go ahead and add them if they are like terms. Okay, so that's that one there. So if I had 7xy squared and then I had xy cubed, those would not be considered like terms because of the powers of the variable of y are not the same. That's why these wouldn't be considered like terms. However, if I had xy squared and y squared x, even though the order is not the same in these two, because the powers are the same and you have the same two variables, these are considered like terms. Okay? So that's just a quick lesson on like terms. So we are going to be doing a lesson on adding and subtracting algebraic expressions, and in that lesson we're going to cover different examples of like terms. So this is just an introduction. So if you have any other questions, feel free to email me at evemathtutoring@outlook.com.